Welcome back to In Pursuit 360. Today, we're going to be talking about law enforcement and personal relationships. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to In Pursuit 360. Today, we're going to be talking about, yes, personal relationships in law enforcement. And they are important. So part of the reason that I decided to make this video today, it is because it is the 23rd anniversary of me meeting my lovely wife at a dance hall. So today is the day, 23 years ago, here in about another hour or two, when I asked my wife to dance for the very first time. And why this fits into this topic so well is because later, as a field training officer, I always asked my new recruits or my new officers that I was training if they were in a relationship or not. Are you married? Are you dating anybody? Whatever the case may be. If they had a significant other. And then I would go on to explain to them that it was a very important question, because if you're already dating or if you're married and you enter the world of law enforcement, there's a pretty good chance that your significant other doesn't have a clue what they're getting into. They're learning it just like you are. And if they're under the misconception that this is going to be a 9-to-5 job, even if you're working midnight shift, if it's a 10 at night to 6 in the morning job, they're completely wrong. It can cause a lot of issues. So make sure that if you're already in a relationship and you're going into the world of law enforcement, you need to have some really deep discussions about what that world's really like. And maybe the two of you should sit down and watch this video together. If you're single and going into law enforcement, you're kind of at an advantage. The reason I say this is, as an example, I met my wife in 1997. I joined the sheriff's office in 1993, went full-time in 1995. So I was already full-time on the road for 2 years when I met my current wife. And she knew from the get-go what my life was like. She knew what my schedule was like. At the time, we were rotating shifts. I worked a week of days, a week of evenings, and a week of nights. And then I started all over again. Days, evening, nights, days, evening, nights. 4 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 2 days off. And so I would get about 6 weeks of weekends off every 3 or 4 months. And so she knew that was my life. That's my schedule. That's how things went. And then that didn't even count the 1 day off that I had for General District Court, my 1 day off for JDR Court, and then 2 or 3 circuit court dates a month that went in there all on my days off. So when she came into it, she knew what she was getting into, because we were dating while I was already in that world. So she got to learn it up front. Whereas those guys or gals that came on the road who were already married, who weren't familiar with the world of law enforcement, they were learning that with their spouses, and a lot of times it caused trouble in the relationship. There were a lot of marriages or long-term relationships that did not survive the world of law enforcement, because there is a certain amount of dedication. And anyone who gets into the career field of law enforcement for the right reasons, they tend to really want to dedicate themselves to the profession. And it becomes, I hate to use the word easy, but it is. It's almost easy to leave your personal life behind because you're so dedicated to what you're doing. All you want to work. You want to get out there. You want to catch the bad guy. You want to do everything you can. If you have a lot of court dates, that's good, because that means you're out there and you're busting your butt, and you've been, making a lot of cases and writing a lot of tickets and all that, and you're all gung-ho and, oh, I got to work. Oh, we have a special detail going on my day off. I'm going to go in and do that. Oh, it's 3D month from Thanksgiving through New Year's. Federal grant money to go out and run DUI stuff, but it's on your night off. And so, it's easy to, oh, I want to make the overtime. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm out there. I'm making money. And meanwhile, your home life is suffering. So you've got to really be careful with that. If you're with somebody when you get into law enforcement, you need to sit down and have a very serious discussion. And you've got to be, if you're the one going into to law enforcement, you've got to maybe understand, maybe you need to make a sacrifice or two to allow your significant other time to adapt, to figure out how things are going to go, and then work on it together. Like, hey, how much overtime are you okay with me working in a month? Or, hey, I know it's Christmas time, but I'm the rookie. The other guys with families, they're going to get their leave first. I'm going to have to work. They need to know this. When it comes to the holidays, the senior guys are going to get the days off. And actually, when I was separated from my first wife and dating my second one, or my current, I should say. I don't know if she sees this, she may end up smacking me because I said current. But anyway, I explained to her that since I was technically single and I had guys on my shift that were married with kids, that I was going to volunteer to go ahead and work the holidays. That way, those guys could go home and spend some time with their families, and I would just go ahead and work the street. Then after we were married, everything that came along, I talked over with my wife. She knew I wanted to be a canine officer. We talked about it. I told her, I said, you realize that it means extra hours. It means extra training time. It means call outs in the middle of the night. It means when I first get the dog, it's like the dog and I for like a week or two just by ourselves in a room in the basement with no contact with the rest of the family. It's supposed to be a bonding time between the handler and the dog. I talked all this over with her and asked her, are you okay with this? And she said absolutely. She's a huge dog lover, so she was good with that. But I didn't make it. I said in a previous video, I would let y'all know, the reason I didn't make it, the sheriff's office at the time wanted you to be married with kids and a yard that's fenced in. They wanted you married because they wanted the stability of the household for the dog. So if you're just dating somebody or living with somebody, that can change in an instant. Whereas if you're married, you at least have a better chance of providing that stable home life for the dog. A lot of consideration for a dog, isn't it? So, we talked about that. Well, then I decided to put him for sergeant. I explained to her, you realize if I make sergeant that I'm going to have to change shifts. I don't know what shift I'll be working. I don't know what my hours are. My days off may change. They don't let you be a new supervisor on the same shift you've been working on. So we had to talk about all that. She said, go for it. I support you. So I made sergeant. So then it came time to put him for first sergeant. We had the same conversation all over again. So do you see the common theme here? So she entered into the relationship already knowing the complexities of the scheduling and the extra hours and working on days off and the special details. And she knew about all that because she learned it all as we were building our relationship. It was all part of the building of that relationship. Whereas some people, again, you enter into the world of law enforcement with somebody else, and the law enforcement officer is like getting used to it and going and going and going and going. Meanwhile, the significant other, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, they're kind of learning, but they're way behind the curve because that officer is like just completely into what they're doing. And you've got to be really, really careful with that. So if you're single and you start dating somebody, and I have to tell this story because I don't know, today is really kind of my wife's day. 23 years ago is when we met. We were talking on the phone one night, and this is when she said she realized that I was the one. I drove a 95 Chevy Caprice was my cruiser. So had that big Corvette engine in it, and anybody that's ever been inside one of those things, when you gun it, I mean, that engine just roars. Well, I had a cell phone in my car, and this is back before the regular smartphones. I had a bag phone, right? I was a big shot because I had a bag phone in my car. Well, I'm talking to her on the phone, and I'm on duty, and I get an emergency call. So I hit my lights, and I hit the gas, and I said, hey, I got this call. I got to get going. And she says, okay, be careful. I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you later. Well, as I'm going to hit the end button, I hit my siren at the same time. Well, I called her back later on that night, and she told me that when she heard that engine rev up and heard that siren start to go right as I hung up the phone, is when she realized that our relationship was definitely something special, something that was going to grow and be something that she wanted to be involved in. So anyway, that was a special moment. So again, what I'm telling you is, if you're getting into this world and you're single, then make sure when you do meet somebody, you bring them along with you. Make sure to include them in what the world is like. If you are with somebody already and you're entering into the world of law enforcement, talk to them a lot before you even get into it. Make sure that they understand everything that is possibly going to happen, the crazy hours, the scheduling, the call outs, the everything. And if you don't know anything about what's coming up, make sure maybe you all watch this video together, or ask somebody that's already in the police world. Some people are just going to tell you all the great stuff, but there's some rough stuff too. This can be a very challenging career on a relationship. And that doesn't even begin to touch on the things that you're going to see and be involved in out on the street that are going to affect your mind, that you're going to have to figure out how to keep out of your personal life. It's good to share with your significant other. You don't need all the gory details, but don't keep things bottled in either. You're going to have to figure out a way to share and get some of that stress off of your chest, so that let your significant other help you. As I told you again in previous videos, I have severe PTSD, and I did not include my wife in any of the things that were going on out on the street or in my mind based off of the things that I was involved in. So I thought I was going to handle it on my own, and I didn't do a very good job of it. So I found out later that talking to her and involving her, again, not in the gory details, not enough to scare her, but enough to let her know that there were things that bothered me, or there were things that were sticking in my mind, where she could have helped me. And later on, when it finally came out and I was ready to talk about it, it turned out it helped a lot just to talk, just to let her know what was going on with my brain. So, these are all aspects of the relationships when you're in law enforcement that you're going to have with your significant other. So there you go. So chase your dream, become a law enforcement officer, bring your significant other along for the ride. Make sure you do it together. It's a team event. Not only are we a team on the street, but we need our family support in order to make it through and have a successful career in law enforcement. So there you go. There's my talk on personal relationships and law enforcement. I wish you the best of luck. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, mash the like button, the thumbs up, hit that little bell notification so you can find out when my next video comes out and you don't miss anything. Meanwhile, take care of yourself. Be safe out there.